What's up, guys? We got another game. We're rated 737. They're rated 754. Let's get a 10-minute speedrun game. They open with 1d4, Queen's Pawn opening. We bring our King's Knight out to its most natural square, f6. They develop their knight to c3 instead of bringing the pawn out. So this is like a Jabava London style setup, but generally you bring the pawn out first and develop the knight behind it. Okay, they're not doing that. I'm going to immediately attack the center with this move c5. It immediately applies pressure to this pawn and says, what are you going to do? He says, okay, well, if you're going to offer me a free pawn, I'm going to take it. I don't mind losing that pawn. You can always get it back in the future. And now he loses control of the e5 square. So I'm going to go e6. What does this do? It opens up the development of my bishop and threatens to win my pawn back. He can try to hold on to it, but I don't think it's going to work for him very well. So he ignores. Instead, he goes e3. This blocks the development of his bishop while opening the diagonal for a different bishop. It might have been wiser to develop this bishop first and only then block the diagonal. Okay, so now I can take back the pawn, which is what I'm going to do. So now material is equal again, but I'm black and I have two minor pieces out. He's white, one minor piece. He wastes time. He goes e4. What does this threaten? It threatens nothing. Maybe it threatens to push and move your knight to an awkward location. You know, you don't want to do that. Fine, so maybe we'll say threatens e5. Drawback is it wastes another turn. He just put it there. So why didn't, it doesn't really make sense, but okay. So we could address this. We could also castle. Doesn't really matter. The thing is, if you castle and he does go e5, you kind of want to have some type of response ready, I guess. Because if you jump it in the center, he'll take it and he'll take it, and you don't want that. So instead, I'm going to develop my knight, which protects this e5 square, and it develops a piece. I thought it protected the e5 square. This guy wrote to me, Joga Logo. What does that mean? So he goes e5. What does this threaten? To win my knight or displace it. What's the drawback? Well, it's hanging, so it makes no sense. I'm just going to take that. It looks like a piece. I always have this to solidify my hanging pieces. Also have some sack ideas maybe. So white goes queen e2. What does this threaten? Threatens to win the knight. What's the drawback? Well, he has all of his pieces on the back row and he's playing around with his queen. Bad idea. Not castling. He's blocking his bishop. It's just a bad move. Okay, but he is hitting my knight, so I do have to move it or defend it in one way or another. I'm just going to make the very calm and simple move d6, defending both of my pieces with a pawn, which is the best defender because now they're solid. Now I can castle at any moment. White goes knight a4. What does this threaten? Well, it threatens to take the bishop, and when I recapture, he wins a piece. What's the drawback of this move? Well, he's already developed this knight, and now he's wasting time moving in again instead of developing the rest of his army. We see this time and time again. Okay, so we can't let him win a piece. So what do? Well, we've seen this in a different game in the speedrun. Queen a5 check, because the diagonal's open, hits the king and the knight. In order to save the knight, he'll probably have to go back. Let's develop our queen with tempo. while creating threats. And you can see how my lead in development is starting to come into play. I'm one move away from castling. He's 1, 2, 3, 4 moves away, unless he goes queenside. But can you really go queenside? Well, at the moment, he goes bishop d2. What does this threaten? It blocks the check and threatens to win my queen. But what's the downside? He's hanging his knight. He didn't see the real threat. And now I'm up a piece. The game is over. And that's how I want you to think. I want you to get to this position and be like, even if I'm white is Magnus Carlsen, I'm still going to win. That's what you want your chess understanding the level to be at. b3, what does this threaten? It threatens to win my queen. What's the drawback? It moves a pawn. It's obviously, I'm not going to leave my queen there. It's a waste of time. It doesn't develop a piece. Terrible move. Okay, so I'm up a piece. I have to move my queen. I can move it here and get the queen trade, right? I can move it here and it comes with tempo, a threat. Both of these are perfectly fine. The threat might be more accurate, but I'm just going to go for the queen trade since I'm up a piece to speed things along. If he takes my queen, I'll recapture with the knight. Again, threatening another piece trade. I have 2 knights in the center. My position looks amazing. And he castles. Okay, fine. Now, what does this threaten? Well, it threatens to move his queen because it's no longer pinned to the king. What's the drawback of castling long? Well, the drawback is I don't have to take his queen now. I can go back to my other plan and try to checkmate him in one move. I could also throw in this check, which forces this, but I'm going to do the tricky. Oh, actually, if I go here, he can go c3, which is annoying. Even if you go here, he'll still have c3. What's the best way to do this? I could just take the queen. I don't have to complicate things because c3 is just, it's not a good move because it weakens his king, but I also don't have the immediate blow, which is annoying, so I'm gonna take the queen. Whatever. And then I have good development. Everything's nice. This pawn is hanging. I can develop. I can take that pawn. In the name of development, I'm gonna castle and say I have 4 points of material. I'd rather develop my army. I don't need to get to 5 points. It's not gonna change anything. All it can do is waste time and cause problems for me. So he develops a knight. He now completes development. Attacks my knight. I could trade. He goes bishop here, and you might think that looks good, but at the end of that line, I could go d5, which shuts out his bishop pretty hardcore. So I'm going to trade another piece since I'm up material. And after he takes back, I'm just going to make the simple move, d5, shutting down the bishop. If he wants to go c4 to open the diagonal, he weakens the king, and I don't have to take. So I'm not sure what he's thinking about because take. Oh, maybe he wants to open up like for an attack on the king, but I don't know about all that. Maybe that's his best try, you know, because you're losing no matter what. So just open up a file. Yeah, that makes sense. But I mean, don't take too long on this. It's like, what are you really thinking about? Yeah, so he takes that way. I'm just going to push the pawn. That way this bishop doesn't exert pressure on me. And now I'm free to do what I want with this guy. Or this way. Yeah. He goes a3. What does this threaten? Nothing. What's the drawback? Waste of time. Should be developing their army. But now they're hanging pawns with check for no reason. If I had to find the worst move on the board that doesn't hang like a bishop or a rook, that was it. Okay, he moves his king over. He has to. I don't need to talk about that one. I'm going to go a5. What this does is create space for my rook, and I can go a4. And if he takes, that develops my rook like crazy. Instead of developing, he attacks my bishop. Again, not good, waste of time. I'm gonna retreat it. Here it is kind of more passive square, but it's also a safe square. And my plan is to launch this up the board, so a safe bishop still touches as far as it can see. So no reason to have a sniper, you know, in the middle of everything. That's what knights are for. Our opponent goes c4, striking at the center. What does it threaten? Well, he can take, I can take, he can take. So it threatens what? To give me an isolated pawn. Do I care? No, not at this point. What's the downside? Well, waste time. He's not developing a piece. It also weakens the b3 square and this pawn. I'm going to ignore him and just push my pawn and open up my rook's line of sight to the king. He could push past. Maybe he should to keep this closed, but he doesn't do it. Instead, he takes, and now I get to take with check. So now my rook is very nicely developed. The king moves closer and attacks my rook. I'm going to develop my last minor piece while defending the rook. I also have this check available, although I'm assuming he's going to do this. He does not do that, and he instead goes pawn grabbing, because who needs to develop your pieces? I could immediately go here. Quite interesting. Maybe I should, maybe I will. Just to see how he responds. Because they might go up, so they might make errors unnecessarily. Okay, so they go back. That's fine. I'm going to bring in my last rook, ignoring all the pawns that he can take, just letting him take everything, all my pawns, and setting up some type of, I don't know, power with my pieces. Of course you can just take back and be fine. But I just want to get my army in the game. I want as much activity and development as possible. His king has zero pawns near it, right? And so this should be like an easy 1-2 knockout right here. Rook here, rook here. And maybe I have to move my bishops like one thing over for a checkmate. So he tries to, I have no idea. It attacks my bishop, and opens this up, but I don't think that does anything. Because check, again to the king, because it's defended by the rook, it wasn't just defended by the bishop. So I'm going to ignore him and just throw a check in. He's going to move out of the way. I'm going to give this second check so he can't escape through this way. And now my rooks are beaming. And now he literally walks into this with check, which forces him to go here. And I don't know what I have. I probably have so many different things, but let's try this one. That's a check. Forces him somewhere. Okay. Now what do we have? Is this a check? That's a checkmate. A pawn checkmate. Look at that. He can't go. He can't go here, here, because the knight. Here, 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 here. Boom. Beautiful. Gorgeous. Pawn checkmate. How often do you see that? Okay, we got another game. We're 752, but now we're facing an 867. I think this is the highest so far. And now we're going to play our first e4 game. He goes d5. That's a Scandinavian. We're going to take and bring his queen out early. Okay, now we're going to attack that queen while developing with a minor piece. So it's all pretty logical so far. Okay, now this is a bad move. Black's best moves are this, this, and this. And by giving this check, all it does is let me develop another piece while you're moving your queen around, right? So you could develop, I mean, you can block with the knight, you can block with the bishop. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to put the bishop here. Now, if you block with the queen, it lets him trade. Right now, his queen's misplaced, so I'd rather just keep it here and start developing my stuff. And see what black does. I mean, black maybe will just develop the knights. They might move the queen again. Which is a weird move, but maybe. And then we can defend it this way. I mean, it's only move 5 and nothing's developed. So I wonder how your opponent left the game. You can claim victory in 60 seconds. Well, this is annoying. I'm just going to forfeit because I don't want to wait. And we'll do a different one. Obviously, I don't care about the rating. So we're going to do this again. Okay, we're a little lower. We're 743 now. But we're going to again start with e4. He's going to go e5. We develop our knight. They develop their knights. All standard stuff. Now we're going to go d4. Pawn in the center. So we're opened up both of our bishops and our knight. Okay, he takes in the center with his knight. What does this threaten? Well, he threatens a piece trade. What's the drawback? He's moving a piece twice. He's hanging this pawn. Also, if I take this, he's hanging this pawn. So yeah, it's just a lot of stuff hanging. So I think I'm going to take this pawn and leave this guy hanging. That way I get the pawn back. Material's even. But right now I have a threat. I have a pawn in the center, a piece in the center. And he goes bishop d6. What's the threat? To win my knight. What's the drawback? Well, he never defended his knight. So now I could take it while defending my piece. That's a double whammy. And now the game is over on move 5. Done. He takes. I'm obviously going to take back with check. Also, g7 is hanging. So normally I wouldn't move my queen this many times. Well, you know what? Maybe I won't take it. If I take it and he moves his rook over, I can take another pawn. He goes d5. I mean, it's totally fine for me, but let me develop some more, a little bit more. Let me just develop castle. I'm up a piece. And I could just checkmate him instead of grabbing pawns and risking counterplay. So now he castles. Fine. I can continue developing my knight. I can castle. Those both seem reasonable. I'm just gonna develop my knight because it's slow, clunky, and I get to remain flexible. Because maybe I want to castle queenside, who knows? And then launch a pawn storm and checkmate the guy, right? Ari and Birla. So now black goes d5, opening up the diagonal for their bishop and hitting stuff. So that's his idea. The downside is that it's kind of hanging because the square is protected so many times by me. Considering I'm up a piece, I'm going to take this hanging pawn and threaten more stuff. I'm not. Okay, so he takes a piece. I'm going to take a piece and threaten a queen trade and eye this with double pressure. Okay, so he just takes the queen. We're going to take with a piece. That way, if he does this, we can just drop it back and the diagonal's still open. There's no pawn there. He develops his bishop, but this hangs this pawn. I don't want pawns. I just want to get my pieces into the game ASAP. So I'm going to castle. I'm already up 4 points of material, and that's enough to win. I just need to get my army into the game. He moves the same piece again. Instead of getting his rooks into the game. This hits the rook, but it also walks into a tempo move. So it's a really bad move by him. And now he has to move his bishop back to where it came from. Well, or now he does. And the downside of me doing this is that once he hits me here, I have nowhere to go with my bishop. So I need to create space for my bishop. So I'm going to move this up and give it this diagonal. He moves his rook onto the file and attacks a pawn. I'm just going to defend this pawn with another pawn and give myself some space to drop back. And now these pawns are pretty strong. You could take, but having him take is even stronger. You could also do what I'm going to do, and that's take this. This comes with tempo. It ruins all of his light squares because the pawns can't. Ooh, I didn't mean to click that, but that's a fine move. But I was trying to show that all the light squares are weak, and it comes with tempo, and this is a threat because it's protected by the rook. Okay, but he responds by hitting me with tempo. I respond by mouse slipping with tempo, and now he hangs the rook. I just take the rook. He should resign. Hopefully. Okay, now he just sacks a pawn. I'm going to take the bishop because there's no attack, there's no nothing. It's just anger issues at this point, mostly. I'm just going to retreat my bishop one square because it was under attack. And now I'm going to go here. And he walked right into it. I was going to kick the king back into the corner, but now he also pins himself. So his best move is probably to get a bishop for the piece. And he resigns. So, okay. We're back up. We keep on speed running, explaining ourselves. Let's see if we can get to a higher ELO rating. Send me your videos and I will review your games. Goodbye.